So this is a Q&A. You have the Q's. Hopefully I have the A's.
And I have a mic and I'll walk around whoever has a
We've got a mic. We've got a mic. Does this mic work too? Is that, should people line up, or you're going to rove? You're good at that.
You start the line, everybody's just stand there, you block people in the back.
I'm digging it. Okay.
Chris and Sean are like,
so you rove.
Forget the line, I thought you.
Yeah, you're good at that too.
All
right.
As long as I can. So,
can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Zane. I appreciate that. So you roam. So anyway, we're just gonna raise your hands. Let's just start.
I saw the hand right there.
And I'm gonna kind of sit standish. Miles standish.
All right, here we go. I'll hold it for you. See, it's perfect. I don't know where your germs have been. Come on, this microphone. First
Are we talking about germs?
Can you still do the voice?
Not so sure about that. It's awesome to be here.
Oh my God.
Well, if that's all it takes to please you, then I think it's What's that?
My question is, what do you think of the newer series of Pokemon? Honestly, there comes a time when every actor has to pass on the torch for a longer series. What do you feel about the new voice of Ash? And if you could give any words of advice for voice actors in the audience, what would it be?
So, I do agree with you on a time to pass on the torch. For us, it wasn't really a passing on. We were all just replaced. So it's always been it's kind of a hard thing to be like, that's so awesome, because we just didn't have a chance to say, I'd like to continue or I don't want to continue. But there's really, I don't actually watch the show simply because I'm not quite mature enough to see such familiar faces with such different voices coming out. And it's really hard for me, and that's my own inadequacy, to be quite honest with you. I think, speaking as someone who has been replaced in many shows, like Winx Club, One Piece, you name it. There's a lot of shows that we started working on and that went on to other people. And also, I work on Sailor Moon now, and Sailor Pluto, and I've replaced someone on that show. So I think it's always difficult when you are the next person. I mean, everyone knows when the person replaced Fred Flintstone, that was probably the most difficult voice. People really were upset. So it's always hard to be the next one. It's different when you have different iterations, like this Spider-Man movie, and now there's another Spider-Man, and there's another one. And you do kind of pass on the torch because it's a whole different idea. So I don't know, I'm really happy that Pokemon continues. What I'm more happy about is the fact that I've been involved in something that we all feel equally bonded to, maybe that's had such an incredible impact on our lives. And I am so happy to be part of this family of people who we start knowing that we have that in common and then find out we have so many more things. Pokemon changed my life in making me realize the importance of so many things. And then coming to conventions and talking to all of you makes me realize again the importance of those things, friendship and honesty and going after your goals but bringing your friends along with you. And that impacted my life in giant ways. So I am happy to be part of that, and so I'm happy that that continues in Pokemon today. As far as being a voice actor, I think the only thing I can say is what my journey has been, and I started acting when I was 5. That's what I've always wanted to do. And I think for me, getting as much training as I possibly can as an actor, I did all the plays in my high school, my elementary school. I went to college, I got a bachelor's of arts in acting, and I went to grad school, and I have a master's in acting. I toured the United States with a couple of different acting companies. I've done a lot of Shakespeare. I also did stage combat, I did dance, I did face painting. I did, all these things that just kept me involved in what I love doing. And so my advice to all of you in whatever you are pursuing is to just get as much experience as you can in that field. Work with people who make you want to be better. And then, so you're always challenging yourself. Take as many classes as you can, keep working in your field. And then, specifically for voice acting, make a good demo. because your demo is your calling card. It's what you send out to people. It's how you kind of introduce yourself. So that's my tiny, tiny bit of advice in your multi-layered cake of a question. Did I answer it all? Did I get it? Okay.
You took a bumper of a question and made this like sweet, beautiful thing. Let's keep talking.
And now we just have to talk about Doctor Who or something. We finished all the Pokemon questions.
That's awesome. Right here.
All right, so you made mention of the journey. What is the craziest scenario this journey has put you through?
The craziest thing that's happened on my journey? Gosh, I don't know that there's only one thing. Wow. Do you mean related to playing Ash, or do you mean in my life as a whole? the whole I've fallen into that is my life. What do you mean?
Your whole career.
My whole career. Gosh, I was once, I used to do a lot of children's parties, and one time I lived in New York City, and we did, one time I was Clueless, you know that, what's her name, Alicia Silverstone from that Clueless. So we did a birthday party for a girl who was like 13, and I guess her dad had a big house, and we did this scavenger hunt, and I had to be the Alicia Silverstone character and lead them around as they found clues, and that was also the high point of my birthday party career. The weirdest thing was there was a Chex party mix wherein they were throwing this big promotional thing in Bryant Park Library behind, in the park behind it, and they filled this fountain with Chex party mix, and we all were dressed as different Santas, all kinds, like some with kind of like Chinese dragon type Santas, regular Santas, some Mrs. Clauses, and they had Santa and Mrs. Claus dancing above the Chex party mix in the fountain, and the rest of us dancing around. It was the weirdest thing. That was pretty weird, and yet so incredibly joyful and cool. I have a lot of weird stuff like that, because my whole life has been this strange amalgamation of work. Yeah, maybe my weirdest voiceover job is reading the dictionary for Scholastic. Thrill a minute. But if you're trying to learn, there's Scholastic ebooks that you can get on the iPad, and when you push the words, I say, can. Pumpkin. And some of them I will tell you what they mean.
How long did that take?
It was a really long time. Because all of that stuff is just lists that you're reading, like pumpkin, a squash that grows in the autumn in the northern hemisphere, and then that, or you have all these different words. It's just endless. But you have to make it all sound like it'll be interesting to the person who is pushing the thing. So constantly you're thinking, who is listening? Who am I talking to? Even when you're just reading the dictionary. So that's where your training comes in. And your imagination.
All the future voice actors are like, oh
my God. And you're like, oh, yeah, don't give up your day job. Yeah.
All right, you ready, sir? All right. I'll hold it for you. I'm good. That's right. I'm working.
I know that you're the voice as an actor man, and it's great, and I love it.
Thank you.
So I have one question though.
Mm-hmm.
How will May feel but when she Ash got kissed by a girl named Serena? Will she feel jealous?
Well, I can only say that Ash is 10, and May is probably 10? 11 maybe? She's a mature 10. So I'm not sure. Personally, myself, as either Ash or May, wouldn't be jealous at all. I can't speak to how Serena feels as the kisser. But as the watcher of the kiss, I think May would be like, I think she would have to roll her eyes, you know, like, oh boy, you know, there's no, I don't know, it's just like, let's get on with the goal and just get on with our training, and then let's leave all this stuff behind. So, get to, back to, I don't.
She would ask got kissed by Selena.
I don't know if she would be jealous. I think they're really good friends, but I don't know. If they ever got to maybe 16, maybe there would be something.
If they ever got this.
I really appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for asking the question.
The depth that the voice actor has to go to prognosticate what the characters might do under some circumstances to appease the question. So.
Well, absolutely, because haven't I thought about it all? I mean, I can give you the backstory, but I don't know. I don't see them in a love situation.
All right, well, back here.
Hello.
Hello. My question is, do you have any fun memories from recording Pokemon, whether it's from the TV show or any of the movies or working with other people?
Yeah, I loved working on this show. There's, we don't have a lot of like crazy funny stories of working on it because really we're paid by the hour, so we would get in, get the script, and get to work. There's no time to, we would kind of get an idea of what was happening in the episode that day, a little, but it was really about like, let's just get this job done. We go into the booth alone, so you just record all of your lines in the show. And there was not a lot of time for goofing around or things like that. It was an incredibly great show to work on because you could just dive in and be the character. And certainly it got easier as the show progressed because I knew how Ash was thinking. So I could work faster, which they liked a lot. But yeah, it was great. When we worked on the first movie especially, we were in a giant studio where there was a huge screen and it was dark in there. We had the light on our podium and, you know, it was like you were making a real movie. Regular days was a little monitor and a little music stand and you're in a tiny booth talking away. So it certainly made it quite grand to work on the first movie, maybe the second. After that it got smaller. Yes, magic.
Hello there.
Hi.
Given that you were the voice of Ash for so many years, did you ever have any input on the Pokemon that he would raise?
Well, I had absolutely no input on anything to the point where they said, we don't need to know what you think, just read the lines, basically. And I'm not joking. There was a thing where, first of all, the whole show was done in Japan first. So once it came to America, the script is translated and then adapted into something with more of an American colloquialisms. Not like sushi is a hamburger, but that's kind of a thing. But things like that, jelly donuts, yeah. Where things are changed, but we had no input. In one episode where Ash and Misty, they're all doing some bits of Shakespeare, and Misty said, you know, wherefore art thou, Ash? And I was saying, but wherefore means why? And she's saying it as, where are you? Wherefore art thou, Ash? Like, I can't find you. And I said, but that's wrong. And they said, we don't care. And I was like, but kids are gonna watch this and they're gonna get the whole wrong idea. And then when they go see Romeo and Juliet, they won't know because they saw it. I was so upset. And I think they might have changed it maybe, but seriously, nothing, those kind of things didn't matter. Because that's kind of like, everybody thinks that. But I feel so strongly that we have to have good grammar, and you've got to have, you know, things like that, because you've got to get used to hearing things correctly. So, no, I had no input.
Hi.
Hi.
I actually have a two-part question. First, you've done so many big fandoms like Pokemon and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Sailor Moon. Did you have a personal favorite that you did of all of those? And also, what was the hardest voice that you actually had to learn or create to do?
I would say Pokemon's my favorite because I had that job for 8 years, and I've never had a job that long, ever, before or since. But I do really love everything I work on. I love to be able to just, even if it's a really mean character or a really silly, ridiculous character, to find something that makes them tick in a way. And I like to be able to just really commit to that. When I audition for things, I commit to that character. I do a lot of audiobooks, and I get to play all the parts. And I love to figure out how the author might narrate the story if they were narrating and get into their head and then get into the heads of the characters. So in some ways I love everything the most, but Ash was the easiest character to play because I got to play him so much. Probably his voice is probably the most difficult one I've had to do because in the beginning they didn't know what they wanted, but they knew what they didn't want. And so Ash's voice is maybe it's kind of a little bit more long, a little stuffier in the beginning, and then as the season went on, he was able to get a little more clear and a little more energetic, and then as the seasons progressed, he got a little bit more, I don't know, mature maybe, because he knew what he was doing. And all of that was a nice progression that I was allowed to make with him because we had the same directors, and then all those cooks that were in the kitchen in the beginning left. And it was just us in the studio really figuring out what it would be. So what made it the hardest is that from the very beginning on, there was always that idea that I could lose the job. And so every day when I went to work, I was still proving myself, even year 5, even year 8. And that's what made it, I think, the hardest.
Hi, I'm Reese Brand. I was wondering, what is your favorite Pokemon? And I'm sorry you didn't ask this a lot. But,
I don't mind, I can answer this all day long.
Will you also say I'm Ash Ketchum from Palatine?
I'm Ash Ketchum from Palatown, and I choose Pikachu!
Inside. Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
Oh, did you have your favorite Pikachu, right? That's your favorite. You did it both.
Oh my God, you're like so not paying attention.
All right, here we go.
I think they can move from the house to under a bridge.
From where? From the house to where?
Under a bridge.
Under who moved under the bridge?
Listen,
Jason?
listen.
He's talking about Lynn.
Help us Pokemon fans.
I don't think, is that a person?
It's a Pokemon.
So Zane, I'm not in those episodes. So I don't know who that person is. But I'm gonna say, because of these times, they were evicted. No, of course. Actually, I really don't know why they moved, although living under a bridge is kind of a cool thing, unless it leaks.
So cute.
That's probably right. So then do you pick the food from there, or was it growing there?
No.
So cute.
People are giving them food.
Oh, I see. So that's a good place to live, I guess. I'm hoping that they can go back to their house at some point, if they choose.
I want to live under a bridge with magic food. That's awesome.
What are you, a troll? Is this suddenly three Billy Goats grow?
Yeah. You get this farm animal thing.
Flip flop, flip flop. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ken, and good question, next.
Correct, Ken.
I was just wondering, you could play any role,
Ever?
Yeah.
All of them?
Right, that's
I
always
have
the answer.
auditioned for so many things that I haven't gotten. So all of them. I love characters that, the lucky thing, since we're talking about Pokemon, the lucky thing about Ash is that he's so multifaceted. You learn about him on so many different levels. And I really like characters that you find out who they really are, rather than kind of a surface. Some characters that I play are in something for such a short amount of time that I might, for myself, establish who they are, but you don't get to see that fully as an audience member. So I honestly wouldn't say I'd love to be Doctor Who, on camera. That's it. Or a cartoon Doctor Who.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's it. So that's what I would like to do, because that's a character who gets to play all these different characters all the time. Every episode, there's something else going on. in Pokemon, Ash got to dress up as different characters, and those were my favorites. So I would like that. Is that good, Ken? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm Brianna.
Hi.
And I just had a question about Dr. Who, since you had mentioned it.
Yes?
Who's your favorite doctor and companion?
David Tennant. Yes. Donna Hill. And she's here this weekend, so you better go see her.
Donna, yeah.
Yeah, Donna. Yeah, I think she's the most amazing actress in it.
Fantastic.
I see everybody in the front.
All right.
Here, and I'm making rounds to where I see you.
Hi.
Hi, I was wondering when Ninja Turtles, I grew up with that show.
Yeah.
Sorry, when they got to season 5, they skipped it and went straight to that show called Fast Forward, where they didn't feature you as much.
Right.
And I was just wondering your opinion about that. And the fact that there still hasn't been a complete collection of that show released.
Yeah, I think that's somehow has to do with 4Kids, because a lot of the shows that we worked on for them, you just never see them again. I mean, even Dinosaur King is on Netflix now, which I just found out. So that's popped up there. But there's a lot of projects with them that are just kind of lost. So I would hope that somehow, especially now that Nickelodeon has it, that maybe there's a way that those episodes can come out in conjunction with something else, but I don't know how those things really work business-wise. I think as really the only female character really on the show, who was on like a regular, I think it's horrible that she didn't get to fast forward. What is she? She was just sitting at home, like, I don't know, running the shop. So it was distressing to me that she didn't get to do a little bit more. I liked that she was so smart and she could always kind of save the day through the computer. But I mean, she had mad skills, and she could have gotten out there. So I kind of wanted a little bit more action. Since everybody else was fighting and, ninja-ing around, I think she could have done a little of that too. So I was certainly sad. Also because then I wasn't working on the show, because I wasn't in it. So every now and then I guess I showed up and I'd do my 3 lines and then go home. So yeah, I thought that was a bit sad for April and then for me. Yeah, I know. I loved working on that show. It was so cool and so close to the comic book, and we had such a nice time. We had a whole group of us in the recording studio at the same time, and it was really great. Really great group of people to work with. From the storyboard artists to the writers, the directors, the actors, all of us together. It was amazing.
So you all did that all in a room together, which is...
Yeah, we did, and the storyboard artists were right there on the same floor with us, so you could go over and talk to them about something if you had a question, and we all went out, and all of the actors were together. We had rehearsal, and Sue Blue, who's directed so much in LA, she directed it most of the time through the phone line, and sometimes she'd come to New York, and it was just a really incredible experience because all of us were fans of Ninja Turtles to begin with. I mean, who isn't? But then to have this group of amazingly talented people all together, it was incredible.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is a two-parter. Did any of the episodes get recorded in English? And
For
if
Pokemon,
that,
yeah.
And if they were, if they weren't actually, what was your initial reaction to finding out Ash had really tall clothes?
Well, see, the weird thing is, I didn't realize we had skipped any because the ones that were banned, we just never did. So basically, I would just go to work, do the show, and then leave. And I don't think I realized that he had all those Tauros and we didn't really catch them. It just, and then we just moved on. Because if I wasn't speaking when they were on camera, I didn't see them. So I only saw my lines. So the same thing, like so much of Team Rocket, all that great humor that they have and all that stuff, when it was just them, I never saw that until I watched it on Saturday morning or before school. So I just realized now I should have known more about that, but I didn't.
All right, a bunch over here.
Okay.
Sorry.
My question is, when working
10th anniversary special, and I actually had been in, it was, I think 2006, I was at a convention in Manchester, England, Sing the Song to Yourself, and when I came back, we got the news that we were just being replaced, and then we finished out the 8th season, and then that was it. So there wasn't a kind of a warning or anything like that. It was just Pokemon USA was taking the show, not renewing the contract with 4Kids, and they decided to do it on their own. So I think they basically cut ties with anyone who'd worked on it before, writers, directors, all the actors. So yeah, no warning, except that we knew and then finished out the season. So, sad.
Yeah.
Hi.
So you were talking about food before, so I wanted to ask, what was your favorite joke that's in the show?
Favorite joke from Pokemon?
Yes.
That's a really hard question for me. I don't think I could have told you a joke that I had said if we just finished the session now and left, quite honestly, because I was so in the moment that I didn't retain much of it. Lately, because I re-watched the first movie, that one about the Vikings, I thought they only had Vikings in Minnesota. I thought that was pretty funny. And so if I hear them back, I remember it, but I just don't remember that kind of stuff off the top of my head. But also understand that while I was working on Pokemon, like I might go for my 2 to 4 or 6 hours in a day, then I went to another job. And then, and that could have been like across town, and then I did a commercial, and then I went and did an English as a second language job, and then I went and, gosh, in those days, in the very beginning of it, my daughter was born at the end of the first season, so once she was born, I would go to work and then come home. And in the very beginning, I would just work, and then I'd be home for like a whole day with her, and then I'd be gone 3 or 4 hours, so she would be with a sitter, and then I'd come back home. So my life as a mother, I don't recall a lot in those first years. And also, once she started school, then I would drop her off in the morning and then go work all day until I could pick her up, and then sometimes I'd bring her to work after that. So she always just came to work with me. We didn't have a lot of extra money for after school or whatever, so she came with me, I went on field trips, we just kind of, you know, did that. So I didn't retain a lot from work. That's my really big answer to, I can't remember anything. But when I hear it again, I remember it. So at least I know I was there.
So I experienced it from the viewpoint of a fan, the original craze of Pokemon back when it first came out.
Right.
You know, the cereal, the Pop-Tarts, all that kind of stuff with Pikachu all over it. What was it like as someone who was a part of the series? What was it like for you seeing Pokemon everywhere? How was that experience just coming out of nowhere pretty much?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. One of my favorite things was we all lived in New York. We recorded the show in New York. And just down the street from this, we recorded in kind of Midtown the first season, and then we moved down closer to Chelsea, if anybody knows New York, for the second season and beyond. And then I was walking, who knows why I was walking down the street, and I saw this little shop that had a lot of Japanese stuff in it, and it was like a warehousey shop. It wasn't just like a cute Hello Kitty store or something, you know, like you go in and there's boxes everywhere, and they had all this Pokemon stuff. Rings with Pokemon, like Psyduck, and of course I bought a lot of them. They're all adjustable. I was like, this is the coolest, and I said to the guy, you know, I think this show might be pretty big. You might want to keep bringing this stuff in. And that was the second season, and he was like, oh, okay. Who knows if he did, you know? But I was like, hey, because what was really cool about it is we recorded for a long time. We started in April, and the show went on the air in September. And up until then, we didn't even know if it was actually going to go on TV, even though they said it was. So then it started at 6 o'clock, and I, like many of you, put the VCR tape in every day and recorded it, because I was like, I just got to get this, because who knows how long this is going to last, you know? So excited. I'm on TV. And Saturday morning cartoons are my favorite things, so I was like, before school, I was getting up every morning at 6, which is not easy for me. And anyway, so that's all I knew. Like, I didn't know other people were watching it. But then slowly I would see kids on the bus in New York, or kids on the subway with their cars. And then I think a year later when the first movie came out and I got to go to the premiere in Los Angeles, when I really realized, like, wow, this is real. There was a Pikachu car there. It was like amazing. And there had been articles in the New York Times about it. And that's when my family was like, hey, this is something, like they knew what I was working on. That's when I thought, wow, I guess this is going somewhere. But the cereals and all that stuff, I kind of didn't have as much as you did, because grocery stores in New York are really small, and so they didn't really have like all that stuff, and we don't have Burger King, and like there just wasn't that around, so I didn't actually see any of that stuff till I started coming to conventions. So.